Yay, and the camera's on. I like the camera.
Not candid.
It's not about me. Right now, I'm evaluating Diane Preston. And she's going to be sharing her speech, Encounter with an Angel. It's Project 5, and it's about Your Body Speaks. So I expect her to look like a little angel. She is.
Or her wing.
The project focuses on, again, body language. So you select a topic that facilitates the use of body language. Use stance, movement, gestures, facial expressions, eye contact to express your message and achieve your speech's purpose. Ensure that body language enhances and clarifies your words and helps the audience to visualize your points and overall message. The message your listeners see should be the same one that they hear. Okay, so again, make your body language smooth and natural. And last, the movement should take place slightly before the verbal point it reinforces. Diane Preston.
Thank you. Traditionally, when you start a speech, you state the purpose. But in this case, this morning, what I'd like to do is tell you my story first, and then at the end, tell you what my purpose is. It starts many, many years ago. It was a time in my life where my intuition was telling me it was time to make some new choices. It wasn't telling me, it was screaming at me. But I decided not to follow that intuition. At the time, I thought that I was doing the right thing by not following it. I thought I was doing what was honorable for everyone concerned. It was only in hindsight that I was able to look back at that time period in my life and realize that the truth was that I really didn't trust my own intuition. And the second part of that was that I was afraid to live out the consequences of my choices. That was the truth. The interesting thing about fear, when you allow fear to make your choices for you, is that it takes you on a ride. And I will tell you that that ride I call the ride through hell on earth. And I will tell you that my ride lasted for over 1 year. At this particular time, this particular day, I didn't know that the end of my ride was coming soon. All I knew was that I was exhausted. That afternoon, on this particular day, I got some really bad news, and it was a lot for me to deal with. I was at this point tired emotionally, physically, mentally. I was barely holding on by a thread. The truth of the matter is that when you're a parent, you don't get the option to have a breakdown. You don't get the option to fall apart. So I pulled myself together, put a happy little smile on my face, took myself down to my daughter's school, picked her up because it was time, and drove her to the pool in Fullerton because she was a competitive swimmer and she swam for about 2.5 hours a day. I dropped her off. I knew that in my state of being, I could not go on deck and make chit-chat with the other parents, pretending that I was okay when clearly I was not. So I decided I needed to go someplace and pull myself together, regroup. So I went to the Fullerton Public Library. I went to the Fullerton Public Library, and upstairs at the time they had a reading area. And this reading area had armchairs everywhere, it had a big couch, and when I got upstairs it was pretty well deserted. I was there by myself. I sat down on the couch, put a book in my lap, spread out so that no one would sit next to me, because I just needed to be alone. I opened that book and I tried to find a focal point. Those of you who've been through Lamaze understand what a focal point is. I found a clock on the other side of the room and I focused all my energy on that clock. My only goal was to breathe. because I knew that if I could breathe, I would actually live. I sat there looking at that clock, breathing. And the whole time that I was doing that, I was saying one prayer over and over and over again. And the prayer was this: please, God, help me. I don't know what else to do. I said that prayer over and over and over again. Some time went by, and suddenly, someone was coming up the stairs. And I noticed it was a homeless man. And the homeless man found an armchair that was across from me. And it was interesting, I remember him just as clear as day. He had an army fatigue jacket on, and he had little khaki shorts on, and little tube socks that came up that had red stripes going around the top, and hiking boots. He took off his jacket, he put it on the floor with all of his other things. He stooped down and he picked up the backpack, opened it, took out a box of Kleenex and took out the first tissue. He took the tissue out and he began to clean the chair. Left side of the chair, right side of the chair, top of the chair, back of the chair, bottom of the chair, tissue to the ground. Took out another Kleenex. Left, right, top, back, bottom, tissue to the ground. He did this until every single tissue in that box was used up. And then he stooped down again, and in one scoop, he picked up every single one of those tissues. He turned and he started coming towards me, and I had remembered that there was a trash can to the left of me. And so I took the trash can, I was sitting down, and I took the trash can and I extended it out to him so that he wouldn't have to walk very far. He just looked at me and he smiled, he shook his head. He was clearly going somewhere else, and he had OCD, and I got that he had a routine. I completely forgot about him. I sat there and I looked at the clock and I just continued to breathe and say my mantra prayer over and over and over again. And then suddenly, without any warning at all, he was standing next to me. His knees were up against the couch. His body was hovering over the top of me. And I have to tell you, I was scared out of my mind. It was like, what were you thinking to engage with this man? What were you thinking? I was so terrified. But as I sat there, he started to lean down over me. And he got closer and closer and closer. And he got right level with my ear. And very quietly he said, "You just keep praying like you have been. Everything's gonna be okay." And he stood up, turned, walked over to his chair, sat down, fell asleep. And that was it. Was it a heavenly angel? Or was it just a human being that was divinely inspired to give me that message at that particular time? I don't know. I don't care. All I know is that I needed that message desperately. The purpose of my speech is this. Whether you know it or not, there is a benevolent presence that is always guiding us forward. And in guiding us, it is always watching, listening, and paying attention. We are never alone.